all hail Pete Stuff. It seems that nothing terrible has happened to him. I don't know whether I don't know when he comes up for re-election, but I don't think there's any suggestion that he's not going to get re-elected. It may be Charles Bradlaugh, the famous Victorian British atheist, was always going up on platforms and challenging God to strike him by lightning. I think that, I have a similar problem of whether to be honest, because my colleagues in those who teach evolutionary science have a real problem with the subversion of their subject by creationists. Creationists nowadays go under the name intelligent design theorists, and they are attempting to subvert scientific education in this country. And a great many of my colleagues are being forced to waste their time fighting this nonsense. Those colleagues that the pro-evolution lobby are not uniformly fond of me. And the reason is that I and others like me are in-your-face atheists, and I go so far as to say that the main reason I'm an atheist is because I understand the theory of evolution and know the evidence for it. I met one of the three lawyers who won the case, the notorious case in Dover, Pennsylvania, and we had a very amicable conversation. And I said to him that it was my atheism. I felt that that science, as I understand it, is pretty much incompatible with theism. And he said, "Thank goodness we didn't call you to the stand." and I knew that. I mean, I appreciate that. I've heard it many times before. If I were asked to go and testify for the pro-evolution case in an American court, I would, if I was allowed to, refuse. Because what I know would happen would be that the lawyer for the other side would say, "Mr. Dawkins, is it true that you have been led to atheism by your understanding of evolution?" And I would have to say yes. And he would simply turn to the jury and say, "My case rests." That's all you need say. If you can show, if you're a lawyer who can show that evolution leads to atheism, you're going to hand the case over to the creationists. Well, naturally, I have hesitation in jeopardizing the efforts of my scientific colleagues, and so I would be tempted, I probably wouldn't succumb, but I would be tempted to lie if I were asked such a question in the court of law. And I think it's exactly the same temptation that an intelligent, educated politician in the United States must be faced with when he's challenged, "Do you believe in God?" He or she almost certainly doesn't, but has to say yes, otherwise they wouldn't get elected. Some of them manage to take refuge in, "Oh, I believe in a general spirit of goodness," or something of that sort, which possibly satisfies. I've just been handed a note that says, "Julia Sweeney will be on C-SPAN tonight, 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. Is C-SPAN television?
Yes.
Okay. Strongly recommended. 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. C-SPAN tonight, Julia Sweeney.
Right here. Over here. May I share that? Don't you feel like you're kind of tilting at windmills? How would you convert the United States away from this heavy religiosity? If you want to do it by teaching it as a science class to kids, I mean, you got to get to the kids, right? Those kids hate science, they got to be dragged to a science class, etc. How would you implement this? I mean, you could start your own church of atheism and get a big bouffant hair and cable channel and try and do it that way, but I don't see how you're going to be able to, convert anybody. I mean, amongst us, preaching to the choir.
Well, these things happen exponentially by people talking to other people who talk to other people. I don't think that I would have guessed that within the first year of its publication, The God Delusion would have sold more than 1 million copies in English alone, and it's been translated into 31 foreign languages incidentally. I know that Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris are enjoying similar success. Something's going on. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think that the coming out of the closet effect is very important. How long ago would it be that nobody would have dared admit that they're gay? Now, gay people are proud to shout from the rooftops that they're gay. I don't think it's as difficult as all that if people who are already rationalist, skeptical thinkers stop being afraid of saying so, stop being so damn polite and respectful, and go out and talk to people about religion in exactly the same way as they would talk about any other topic. Don't treat religion with kid gloves. Don't treat it as something that is to be especially protected by respect. I'm not particularly unhopeful that the United States could change in a very big way rather rapidly. When I was on my book tour last year, I found that the most enthusiastic audiences that I got were not in Boston or New York or San Francisco. They were in Lynchburg, Virginia, in Kansas, as though the people, obviously the people who came to my meetings were a self-selected audience, but I had the feeling that they were a beleaguered minority who felt liberated, who felt empowered by the fact that somebody who admittedly didn't have to live in the place, I mean somebody who actually was flying out the next day and therefore could say whatever he liked. Nevertheless, somebody was articulating in words the thoughts that they held themselves. And so I take courage from that. I take courage from, well, the little excerpt from the child that we heard earlier, that marvellous skeptical child. One of the plans that I possibly might, for my next book, might be to write a children's book. I'd like to try to think of how to do, maybe not a child's version of the God Delusion, although that's a possibility, but something to encourage children to question their parents. Don't take anything on faith. Ask what the evidence is for everything. Could there be a child's version of that? I don't see why not. Would children be allowed to read it? Maybe a start would be if all of the 1 million people who bought The God Delusion and the others who bought God Is Not Great and The End of Faith, if they bought it for bought the child's version for their children, that's already an awful lot of children.